Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry site, and today we're here with Jim Sutter. He is the CEO of the U.S. Soybean Export Council, USSEC, as you guys have called it.
That's right.
Very good. Thanks for being with us today, Jim.
Well, Sarah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Very good. And Jim and I are kind of tucked away in the booth here at IPPE in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we want to hear just a little bit. We've not talked to you guys in a long time, and so we want to just hear a little bit about your organization and what you guys are up to.
Great. So we're an organization that represents the whole soy export value chain. We were formed 20 years ago by the American Soybean Association and the United Soybean Board to be the group that is singularly focused on international marketing of U.S. soy. So we represent farmers all the way through export elevators. We've got about 120 members, seed companies, railroads, exporters, as I said, processors, all those kind of people as you'd imagine. So we do our work. Our work this year will touch about 90 countries. We've got people all around the world. About 200 of us in total are engaged with our organization. We've got about 45 in the U.S. and the balance are international. And we're broken up into 6 different regions. You can imagine the regions around the world that we would cover, but many different places that soy goes. If you think about what is it that we're really trying to do, so we have 3 key strategic goals that we try to think about all the time. Making sure that we have market access, attain market access for U.S. soy, so in the markets it wants to go to, it has the ability to do that there aren't trade barriers. Secondly, we're trying to differentiate U.S. soy. What makes U.S. soy different than soy from other origins? And there are some differences. And then, of course, once we've educated people about that, to build a preference, elevate a preference for U.S. soy. Because we believe once they understand the value, they will then have a preference. So those 3 strategic goals are what we wake up and go to sleep thinking about.
Excellent. Very good. Well, tell me some of the key issues or challenges that you see impacting the global soybean trade.
Well, Sarah, first off, if you kind of look around the landscape these days with regard to trade, there are some impediments to trade. And whereas, 10 years ago, I think everybody thought trade was a great thing and countries should be trading with one another. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of an anti-trade bias these days. I don't know if that'll continue, but that's something we continue to talk about, the importance of trade and the way that trade and for countries to purchase feed ingredients, foodstuffs, those kind of things, agricultural products, they can actually enhance their nutritional security rather than hurt it. So I think that's something we always need to be educating people about. In terms of U.S. soy, there's soy being grown in several countries around the world. Other countries are expanding their production. So we're trying to make sure that we have all the markets around the world that want to buy U.S. soy understand the value that U.S. soy can deliver. So making sure they understand that value is a critical component. And then just there's a little uncertainty these days in trade circles. So trying to calm people and tell them that, the U.S., I believe, is going to continue to be a big producer of ag commodities. International markets are extremely important to us, to our farmers, and so we're going to continue to have the opportunity to supply those international markets.
Very good. And obviously here in the United States, we very recently had a change in the administration. Do you see that having a big impact or very little impact on U.S. soy trade?
Oh, I think anytime there's a change in administration, people wonder, what will this mean? And then because what we focus on is the change of one person. The president changes, but a whole bunch of other people change as well. We work very closely together with the Foreign Agricultural Service, a part of USDA, and so we're seeing who the new people at USDA and FAS will be as part of this new administration. So it's important for us to know that and then kind of educate them about U.S. soy. But do we think it will really make things change? No. Again, as I said before, I think that the U.S. is going to continue to be a big producer of soy, and 60% of our crop gets exported in the form of beans, meal, or oil, and that's important for us to continue. So I think that we'll have the opportunity to do that. Now, there may be some things that come up. I think this new administration is very focused on ensuring we have fair trade. I think they also want free trade. So we want fair and free trade, and that's great for us. As I mentioned earlier, we touch 90 countries with our programs, so we'd like to see those continue to grow.
You mentioned soy, as in just soybeans, meal, and oils, right? How does it break out for, you know what I mean, from an export standpoint? And do you see any of those, the demand for those going up or down?
That's a great question, Sarah, and it is changing, so I'm glad you asked that. So historically, about 85% of our total exports have been beans, and 10 or 12% meal, and the small balance oil. And so the way we see that changing going forward, you've probably heard about the increased demand for oil going into the biofuels industry. So even though oil is a small export today, we think it can probably get smaller in the future. And as this domestic oil demand has grown, there's an increase in the crush of soy. So more soybeans are being crushed here, and so that means that more meal is available for the export market. So we will see our meal exports going up. We expect them to go up by 50% in the next 10 years, say, maybe 8 to 10 years. And we expect bean exports to stay about the same. So that means that percentage-wise, we'll probably get to the point where only 75% of our total exports are beans, and maybe 25% will be meal, or maybe 24.5%, and a very small percentage would be oil. But that's the change that we see coming. And that's a good thing for us, because as we export more meal, it helps us diversify our markets, which is really important to us. And let me just jump in and just talk about China for a second, because it's hard not to talk about China in a soy discussion, because they're the biggest importer in the world, take about 60% of the global trade of soy, and they take about 40% of U.S. soy's exports go to China. And people may say, 40%, doesn't that worry you? Well, it used to be 60%. So honestly, I'm quite happy that we've diversified, and it's only 40% today. But speaking of that, as we export more meal to different destinations, that'll help us diversify even further and get away from a reliance on that one single market.
Very good. And the two countries I wanted to chat about are China and Brazil, right?
Okay.
Brazil is the other big elephant in the room, I feel like, when it comes to soy. Tell us what you know about, Brazil and their growth potential and what that might mean for the United States.
Yeah, so I expect Brazil to continue to grow. They are, we work closely together with Brazil in some ways. Even though we're a competitor, we're in an organization together that works on making sure there is market access for soy around the world. Sometimes multiple voices are better than just one voice. So I think that the Brazilian industry is probably poised to continue growing. I believe the rate of growth will slow some. I don't think they will just have this continued really fast pace of growth. But, we're fortunate in the soy industry that demand globally continues to grow. And so the world needs what Brazil and the U.S. and Argentina and other countries can produce. So fortunately, even though they've been growing, we haven't had huge surpluses that have really caused negative things to happen to the price. Now, we had a little bit of that earlier this year. Prices came down because people were expecting on top of a record crop in the U.S., a huge crop in South America. Now we see as the crop predictions get a little bit smaller, the price has gone up a little bit. And I think what the market's also realizing is that demand's pretty good. So long story short, I expect Brazil to continue to grow, albeit at a little bit slower pace.
Fantastic. Great. Well, hey, thank you, Jim, so much for all the information today. It was great chatting with you.
Nice to talk to you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thanks. This is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry Site.